August 1791. For years, the United States Northwest Territory has simmered with violence between Native American tribes and U.S. settlers. After the humiliation of General Harmar's defeat the previous year, General Arthur Sinclair has orders from President Washington to lead a second attack against tribes of the Northwestern Confederacy, a punitive expedition to ensure future compliance. That summer, Sinclair's force assembles near Fort Washington, today the city of Cincinnati, Ohio. Troops then advance 18 miles to the banks of the Great Miami River and construct a supply base named Fort Hamilton. General Sinclair, however, has to travel 70 miles to Lexington to find his militia reinforcements. In the end, he gets just 400 men, less than half what he'd been promised. In his absence, his second-in-command, Major General Richard Butler, is in charge. 48 years old, Irish-born, Butler had been a distinguished regimental commander in the Revolutionary War, frequently praised by Washington himself. He also has considerable experience of negotiating with the Northwestern Confederacy and knows several of the chiefs personally. Following Sinclair's orders, as soon as Fort Hamilton is complete, Butler leads the army north. It's October 4th, a late start for what had been planned as a summer campaign. The nights are already colder and days shorter. The army's advance through the forest is painfully slow. Narrow trails have to be widened for wagons and artillery. But there is a dire shortage of axes and saws. For the first 5 days of the advance, the army averages just 4.5 miles a day. When Sinclair rejoins the army, he is infuriated by the snail-like progress. But at every stage, he is hampered by a lack of equipment and supplies. He is particularly concerned about the shortage of flour for baking bread. On October 12th, heavy rain is followed by the first frost. And in freezing mud, Sinclair's army grinds to a halt. Conditions for the troops are miserable. It rains constantly. Rations have been halved, and morale is at rock bottom. Soldiers begin to desert in growing numbers. Incredibly, the 6-month contracts of many levied troops now start to expire mid-campaign. And as soon as their time is up, many, understandably, choose to go home. 9 days into the advance, 40 miles north of Fort Hamilton, Sinclair orders the construction of another supply base. This one will be named Fort Jefferson. It takes 2 weeks to build. Sinclair's decision to secure his supply route in this fashion is militarily prudent, but it's costing a lot of time. And his troops remain cold, wet, and hungry. At Fort Jefferson, 3 soldiers are caught trying to desert. Sinclair decides to make an example of them, and they are hanged. The army is now down to 1,500 men. Already a third of its strength has been lost to sickness, desertion, or left behind to garrison forts. Things are so bad, Sinclair considers turning back. He himself is suffering agonizing attacks of gout that leave him unable to ride a horse. But he decides to continue the advance. A few days later, it begins to snow, and the army, having again run out of flour, halts once more. As U.S. troops await supplies, Little Turtle and fellow commanders of the Northwestern Confederacy have been formulating their response to the expedition. They have observed the slow progress of Sinclair's force and already picked off a few stragglers and deserters. They know their forces are now evenly matched in numbers. So rather than retreat, as they'd done the previous year, the chiefs decide to challenge the U.S. Army head-on in battle. The dense woodland and their experience as hunters and warriors will give them an advantage. Yet it is a break with their usual hit-and-run tactics and extremely high risk. But so too are the stakes. General Sinclair is oblivious to the looming threat. His handful of scouts from the allied Chickasaw tribe have failed to detect the large enemy force. Now he makes a fateful decision. Expecting a vital flower convoy to arrive any day, he fears it will be hijacked by deserters from his own army. So he dispatches Major Hamtramck and 300 men of the 1st Regiment, his best troops, to find the convoy and escort it safely to the army. Then he resumes his march. On November 3rd, believing himself to be within striking distance of his target, Kikiongi, although in reality completely lost, he gives the order to set up camp. He chooses a position atop a steep-sided plateau beside the Wabash River. Trusting to the strong natural defenses, he gives no order to fortify the camp, and while most of the army bivouacs in rectangular formation on the high ground, limited space means the militia companies have to camp 300 yards away, on the other side of the Wabash, here just a shallow stream. If there is an attack, it will be very difficult for either camp to support the other. At that moment, more than 1,000 warriors of the Northwestern Confederacy are assembling, just 2.5 miles away. They know exactly where the U.S. forces are, and the next morning, at dawn, they will attack. In the cold early morning darkness of November 4th, 1,200 warriors move into position. They are in a crescent formation. On the left, Ottawa, Ojibwe, and Potawatomi warriors. On the right, Wyandot, Mingo, and Cherokee. And in the center, Shawnee, Lenape, and Miami. Just before 7 a.m., with the sun's first light streaking through the trees, they let out a giant war cry and advance. In the U.S. camp, soldiers are making breakfast. Rumors swirl of recent sightings of Native Americans, reports which have not been passed to General Sinclair. Now, militia sentries to the west are horrified to see hundreds of warriors advancing through the trees. They fire their weapons and run, pursued by a hail of musket balls. The inexperienced militia are taken completely by surprise. They fire a few shots and either run or are cut down where they stand. Their camp is overrun in minutes. Survivors scrambling through the freezing water of the Wabash and up the slope to the main camp. Here, U.S. regulars and levy regiments are stood too, alerted by the sound of war cries and musket fire. Their 6 cannon are loaded and ready to fire. But panic-stricken militia rushing into camp block their line of fire. and it is difficult to target an enemy who moves in small groups, dashing from cover to cover. When the guns do open fire, their shots go high, crashing through branches overhead. While Miami, Shawnee, and Lenape warriors make a frontal attack on the camp, focusing attention, the two wings of the Native American Army push through the woods to encircle Sinclair's camp. U.S. outposts are quickly overrun or flee back to camp. Firing from cover, Native American sharpshooters begin to pick off U.S. gun crews and officers. Within 30 minutes, a quarter of Sinclair's force are casualties or have fled into the woods. More men are falling every minute. Sinclair recognizes the danger his army is in and orders Lieutenant Colonel Dark, commanding the 1st Levy Regiment, to clear the rear of the camp. Dark takes 5 companies, about 300 men, and leads them forward in a wheeling bayonet charge to the right. He is supported by 50 mounted dragoons on the left. Wyandot warriors fall back before them. But it is a trap. They are luring the U.S. troops out of position. By the time they reach Buck Run Creek, they're cut off and surrounded. The Wyandots renew their attack, inflicting heavy losses on Dark's men as they fall back to camp. Meanwhile, Shawnee warriors attack the southern end of the camp, where the slope is less steep. They overwhelm dragoons and levy troops guarding the perimeter and break into the center of the camp. Here they fall on wounded soldiers and civilians sheltering behind the front line. These include camp followers, servants, cooks, wives, a few children. Dozens are killed. Sinclair sends Major Hart, commanding the 2nd Regiment, to clear the camp at Bayonet Point and rescue any survivors. Hart's attack is successful, but he is shot and killed, and his men suffer heavy losses. About half the U.S. regular officers are now dead, and Second-in-Command Major General Butler has been wounded twice. Some soldiers, stunned by the horrors unfolding around them, simply give up and cower behind any cover they can find. It is now 8:30 a.m. A short lull in the fighting follows, which Sinclair uses to pull in his perimeter and form a tighter defense. It is the quiet before the storm. Little Turtle and the war chiefs are rallying their men for one final attack. Two hours have passed since the initial attack, and Sinclair sees that if they do not break out through the enemy lines now, his entire force will be wiped out. The handful of surviving officers rally the men for a do-or-die charge, back down the trail by which they'd arrived. With fixed bayonets, U.S. regulars lead the way, pushing through the enemy's skirmish line. Anyone who can still walk hurries behind, but dozens of wounded are left to their fate. The breakout soon turns into a mad dash as terrified survivors dump weapons and kit in their race to escape. Sinclair lingers at the rear of the column to ensure as many get clear as possible. He is one of the last to leave the battlefield. warriors pursue the shattered U.S. Army for several miles. Then they return to the campsite to loot and finish off the wounded. Among them, Major General Butler. The warriors of the Northwestern Confederacy celebrate into the night. The Battle of the Wabash, which would come to be known as Sinclair's defeat, is over. The U.S. rout doesn't stop until exhausted survivors reach Fort Jefferson that evening, a distance of 30 miles. Here, the roll is taken, and their appalling losses revealed. 2/3 of the army have been either killed, wounded, or are missing. All 6 guns have been lost, along with the baggage train and 1,200 muskets. Native American losses are around 20 dead and 40 wounded. It has been an utter rout and a humiliating defeat, the largest the United States Army will ever suffer against Native Americans, and costlier than any battle of the Revolutionary War. But it was not entirely unforeseen. General Harmar, defeated himself by Little Turtle the previous year, had expressed grave concerns about Sinclair's expedition. His views were recorded by Lieutenant Denny, unfortunate enough to have served in both expeditions. Harmar saw with what material the bulk of the army was composed. Men collected from the streets and prisons of the cities, hurried out into the enemy's country, and the officers commanding them totally unacquainted with the business in which they were engaged. Not any one department was sufficiently prepared, both quartermaster and contractors extremely deficient. It was a matter of astonishment to him that the commanding general, who was acknowledged to be perfectly competent, should think of hazarding, with such people and under such circumstances, his reputation and life, and the lives of so many others. Knowing, too, the enemy with whom he was going to contend, an enemy perhaps superior to an equal number of the best men that could be taken against them. Sinclair's defeat led to the United States' first congressional investigation. Their report cleared Sinclair of personal blame, but found a long list of failures in the preparation and execution of his campaign. The next U.S. general sent to take on the Northwestern Confederacy, General Mad Anthony Wayne, would first impose major reforms on the U.S. Army. He would insist on more resources, greater professionalism, improved training and tactics, and better reconnaissance. For the Native Americans, the Battle of the Wabash was a brilliant victory, won through courage and tactical skill. It marks out Little Turtle, Blue Jacket, and Bacongahelas as among the most successful Native leaders of all time in the wars against the United States. But it also proves to be the high point of their resistance. Their enemy would soon escalate the Northwest Indian War, and under the leadership of General Wayne, bring it to a conclusion at the Battle of Fallen Timbers. The inexorable westward march of the United States would continue. Can't wait for more epic history videos? Then head over to Nebula, where you can find new videos ad-free. The first part of our new series, Nelson's Battles, is available to watch right now. we're using 3D graphics and Unreal Engine to recreate the great naval engagements of the Napoleonic Age, starting with the Battle of Cape St. Vincent, with the Nile and Trafalgar coming soon. Nebula subscribers can watch it right now and know they'll be the first to see the remaining episodes all ad-free. Nebula is a prestige streaming service built by creators to offer a superior experience to the clickbait, chaos, and ads of other video platforms. Here, there are no ads and no algorithm, just hand-picked creators you can trust, working hard to create original, quality content. It's the most interesting, fastest-growing independent video platform on the internet. And Nebula fairly rewards its creators, so if you sign up, you're actively supporting channels like ours. On Nebula, you can watch our entire catalog ad-free and see new videos at least a week before they're released on YouTube. Plus, there's content from hundreds of other great creators. And with Nebula's new category homepages, you can quickly find whatever you're after. The History homepage shows how much Nebula has to offer, including videos by Spectacles, Exploring History, and our friends at The Great War. Plus, Nebula Originals, exclusive series you can't watch anywhere else, such as Real-Time History's Red Atoms. This fascinating 5-part series explores the Soviet nuclear energy program from its World War II origins through the height of the Cold War to the world-shaking catastrophe at Chernobyl. All this and a massive discount for Epic History viewers. The link in our video description gets you 40% off the annual plan. That's just $30 a year for ad-free viewing, exclusive content, and the knowledge you're helping your favorite creators build a sustainable platform for the future. Even better, the Nebula Lifetime Plan offers lifetime access without strings for $300 and helps Nebula to fund more of its original, creator-owned series. Thanks to all our existing Nebula subscribers, and for everyone else watching, we hope to see you there soon. Thank you to Osprey Publishing for kind permission to use several of their images in this video. You can find links to some great books by Osprey about America's frontier wars in the video description. Thank you also to artists John Buxton, Todd Price, and Bryant White for permission to use their work in this video. To view more of their fantastic works, follow the links in the description. Thanks to the Patreon supporters who help to make this channel possible. From builders such as Oscar Lopez, John Hale, and Flonzy, to citizens such as S. Tanto, Nathan Dern, and H. Spartazan, and heroes like Alessandro Catocini. Join their ranks by joining us on Patreon, where you'll get early, ad-free access to new videos,